It was a hot and heavy afternoon, the kind of heat that makes your skin burn and your clothes stick to your body. Maria held her swollen belly as she slowly stepped out of the small, old car. Her back ached, her feet were swollen. She was 7 months pregnant, and all she wanted was a bottle of cold water and a few fruits from the grocery store. The parking lot was half empty, the sun beating down like fire. She wiped her forehead, took a deep breath, and closed the car door gently, careful not to make any sudden movements. Her movements were slow, tired, the kind only a mother with a life growing inside her could understand. Across the street a police car rolled in. The siren was off, but the engine sounded angry, like it carried something more than just fuel, something darker. The driver was Officer Rick. Everyone in the area knew him. Tall, white, bald-headed with sunglasses always covering his cold eyes. He had the kind of walk that made people step back without realizing why. And today, he had spotted something or someone that made his blood rise. Maria. He watched her quietly for a moment, then got out of his car and slammed the door hard. His boots hit the ground fast and firm, as if the world needed to hear he was coming. He walked toward Maria without smiling. Maria turned slowly, feeling something wrong, a strange tightness in the air. When she saw the officer coming toward her, her heart skipped, not out of guilt but out of fear. In her life, these uniforms had never brought comfort, only trouble. "Hey," Rick shouted, loud enough for others to turn and look. "Whose car is this?" Maria blinked, confused. "Mine," she replied, softly. "I just parked. I'm going to buy." "Don't move," Rick snapped, cutting her off. "Show me your ID." Maria opened her small purse with shaky hands. She had nothing to hide, but her breath grew faster. Why was he acting like this? She gave him the ID. He barely looked at it. His eyes were on her skin, her accent, her belly. "You got drugs in the car?" he asked. "No, nothing," she said quickly. I said step back," he shouted. More people in the lot had started watching. A man pulled out his phone and began recording. Another woman whispered, "She's pregnant." "What's he doing?" Rick didn't care. His jaw was tight, his voice louder now. "Put your hands up." Maria was terrified. "Please," she said. "I'm pregnant. I didn't do anything." But Rick didn't stop. He moved forward fast. He grabbed her wrist. She pulled slightly back, not to fight him, but to protect her stomach. That small motion was enough for Rick. He shoved her. She fell. A scream tore through the air. Maria hit the hard ground with a cry of pain. Her belly hit first. Her face twisted in shock and fear. She gasped for air. People ran toward her, shouting. Man recording was now screaming too. He pushed a pregnant woman. "She's bleeding. Look at her belly." Rick stepped back like nothing happened. She resisted. He said to no one in particular, but no one was listening to him anymore. All eyes were on Maria. She held her stomach, tears streaming down her face. My baby, she kept whispering. The camera kept recording. Someone called an ambulance. Someone else shouted, "He needs to be arrested." Rick, seeing the crowd grow, finally walked back to his car. His face was red, not with shame, but with anger. How dare they question him? The ambulance arrived fast. Maria was barely conscious. Blood stained her dress. Her eyes were wide with fear. Paramedics lifted her gently, placing her on a stretcher. David, her husband, arrived minutes later. Someone had called him after recognizing Maria. He saw the blood, the people, the flashing lights. He ran to her side, eyes full of panic. "What happened?" he cried. "What happened to my wife? What happened to my child?" No one had answers yet. As the ambulance pulled away, the video was already online. Within hours it was shared thousands of times. People were angry. People were crying. The title under the video was clear. "Racist Cop Pushes Pregnant Woman to the Ground," caught on camera, but Maria was not watching the video. She was lying in a hospital bed, connected to machines, eyes closed. Doctors moved around her quickly. The baby's heartbeat was slow, too slow. Nurses whispered to each other. One nurse held Maria's hand and said gently, "Stay with us. Stay strong, your baby needs you." David stood outside the room, his fists clenched. He had never felt this helpless. He wanted to scream, to break something, but all he could do was wait and pray. The cop who pushed Maria had not been arrested, not yet. He was still on duty, still free, but the world had seen what he did. The truth had been caught on camera, and it was just the beginning. In the days to come, Maria's name would be known across the country. Protests would rise. The story would reach news channels, lawmakers, and justice groups. But tonight, only one thing mattered. Would the baby survive? Would Maria open her eyes? And would Officer Rick ever face what he had done? The air outside the hospital was thick with questions. But deep inside the building, in a room full of beeping machines, lay a mother who had been attacked for no reason, and a baby who was still fighting to live. The fight for justice had just begun. The video was just 57 seconds long, but it felt like a lifetime. It showed everything: the fear in Maria's eyes, her soft voice trying to explain, the officer's loud commands, the sudden shove, the fall, and finally, the sound of someone screaming, "She's pregnant." In less than an hour, the clip had already reached hundreds of people. By the next morning, millions had watched it. Some cried, some shook with anger, and some couldn't believe this was still happening in their country. On social media, Maria's name trended with hashtags like #JusticeForMaria, #pregnant and pushed, and #StopRacistCops. People from all backgrounds began to speak. Mothers said, "That could have been me." Fathers wrote, "He could have killed the baby." Activists said, "We've seen this before. We've warned you." But inside the small hospital room, none of that noise reached Maria. She lay still under soft white sheets, her body hooked to machines. Her skin was pale, lips dry, and eyes closed. Doctors checked her every hour. The baby's heartbeat was up and down, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. Nurses said kind words, but their faces were tense. David never left her side. He kept whispering to her, hoping she could hear. "Stay with me, please. You're strong, you always were." Outside the hospital, reporters had started to gather. Big vans with cameras, news anchors fixing their microphones. The media wanted to talk to Maria. They wanted to talk to David. They wanted a story. But David was in no mood to give them one. Not yet. The police department, on the other hand, stayed silent. Their official post on social media was cold and short. "We are aware of the incident involving Officer Rick Ann. Internal review is underway. No further comment at this time." People were furious. "Review, he pushed a pregnant woman." One person wrote, "He should be in jail," shouted another. A storm of anger was rising, and the police department didn't seem to care. Inside, the department officer Rick sat at his desk like it was just another day. He wasn't fired, he wasn't suspended, not even a warning. A few officers looked at him differently now. Some shook their heads, others didn't say a word. Rick didn't care. He believed he had done nothing wrong. "She looked suspicious," he told a colleague. She wasn't listening, but deep down, he knew the world had seen too much this time. Maria's cousin, Lena, was the first family member to speak to the press. With tears in her eyes, she stood outside the hospital and said, "Maria is not a criminal. She's a teacher. She was buying food. She was attacked while carrying her unborn child. What kind of country allows this?" Her words hit millions. People began protesting, first in front of the hospital, then in the streets. Posters showed Maria's face, people lit candles, carried signs that read, "Protect our mothers," and chanted, "No justice, no peace." A young journalist named Samira had been watching the story since the video first appeared. She worked for a small online news outlet, but her heart was big, and she believed in truth. She began digging. She wanted more than just the video. She wanted the story behind it. Who was Maria? Who was Officer Rick? What was the system doing not doing to protect people like her? She visited Maria's neighborhood, talked to neighbors. "Maria is kind," one woman said. "She tutors kids for free." A man added, "She once helped me find my lost daughter. That woman is gold." Samira wrote it all down. She wanted the world to know. Maria was more than a victim. She was a human being. A good one. Back in the hospital, Maria finally opened her eyes. Her body hurt. Her mouth was dry. The first thing she asked was, "Is my baby okay?" The nurse held her hand and smiled softly. "Your baby is still fighting, but we need you to stay calm and rest. He's strong like his mother." David cried quietly beside her. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Why did he do it?" David had no answer. He only said, "I'm going to fight for you. I swear." A lawyer named Mr. Haniff arrived the next morning. He was experienced, smart, and not afraid of big cases. He had fought against police abuse before and won. David shook his hand and said, "I don't care how long it takes. I want justice, for her, for our child." Mr. Haniff nodded. "Then we start today." He held a press conference outside the hospital gates. His words were calm, but powerful. "My client Maria did nothing wrong. She is a pregnant woman who was violently attacked by a police officer while doing nothing more than shopping. The attack was recorded, seen, and shared by the world. Yet the officer is still working. That is unacceptable. We will take this to court, and we will not stop until Maria is given the justice she deserves." The crowd cheered. Later that evening, Samira released her first article. It was titled, "Maria is not a hashtag. She is a mother, a teacher, a human being." The story went viral. Suddenly, Maria wasn't just another victim. She was a symbol, a voice, a reason for change. But not everyone was happy. Inside the police station, Rick saw the protests, the news, the articles. He slammed his phone on the table. "This is all lies," he muttered. But even he could feel it. Now things were slipping out of his control, and he didn't like it. One of his fellow officers leaned over and whispered, "You might want to lawyer up, man. This one's not going away." Rick didn't reply. He just stared at the wall, jaw tight, eyes burning. In the quiet hospital room, Maria touched her belly gently. She felt the baby move. A soft kick, like a sign of life. A small hope in the middle of chaos. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Stay with me, my love. Mama is here." And outside, the world kept watching, because this was no longer just a video. This was a fight, and it had only just begun. The streets were louder now. Protesters marched with fire in their voices. Maria's story had shaken the country, but the police department still refused to act. No arrest, no suspension, just silence. It was as if Officer Rick had done nothing wrong. as if a pregnant woman being thrown to the ground didn't matter. But behind the noise, something unexpected was about to change everything. A second camera angle, hidden and forgotten, was waiting to be found. Samira, the young journalist, was restless. She couldn't sleep. Every night she watched the video, again and again, studying Rick's body language, Maria's calm words, and the moment everything went wrong, she knew there had to be more. One video wasn't enough. She wanted the full truth. So she went back to the Cinta parking lot where it all happened. The sun was softer that day, but the shadows still hung heavy on the pavement. Samira walked from one shop to another, showing her press card and asking the same question again and again. Do you have security cameras facing the lot? Most shopkeepers shook their heads. Some ignored her, but then, outside a small electronics store, a tired old man nodded slowly. Yes, he said. We have a camera, it faces the lot. What? Samira felt her heartbeat rise. Did it capture what happened to the pregnant woman? The old man rubbed his chin. Maybe no one asked me yet. Come, let's see. Inside the shop, the lights flickered. Security screen was small, and the footage blurry, but the moment Samira saw the angle, she gasped. It was perfect. It showed everything from the side, Maria standing calmly, Rick approaching her with speed, shouting, and most importantly it showed his hand clearly. The shove, the fall, the truth. Samira asked the old man for a copy. He hesitated. They warned me not to share anything, he said quietly. Who warned you? Someone from the department, he said. Told me to delete it. Samira leaned in, her voice low. If you delete this, they win. But if you share it, Maria gets justice. A child might live because of you. The man looked at the screen for a long time, then nodded. Take it. I won't be part of hiding the truth. That night, Samira posted the second video on her news page. It spread even faster than the first. People watched the second angle in shock. Now there was no question. Maria was calm. Rick was aggressive. He didn't just guide her down. He shoved her hard. People who had doubted Maria's side now had nothing to say. The truth was right in front of them. Again. This second video broke something open. News channels replayed it side by side with the first. Commentators argued, louder. Celebrities joined the protests. More than 20 city blocks filled with people chanting, we saw it twice. Now do what's right. Inside the hospital, Maria watched the new video with tears in her eyes. That's it, she whispered. That's what happened. David sat beside her, holding her hand. Now they have to believe you, he said. Now the world knows. But inside the police department, tension exploded. Chief Wallace called an emergency meeting. His voice was angry and cold. You didn't tell me there was another angle, he snapped at Rick. I didn't know, Rick muttered. It's just a stupid shop cam. Well, that's stupid. Cam is now national news. Do you realize what you've done? For the first time, Rick looked nervous. His confidence cracked. He stood in the corner while the chief called in the city's legal team. The mood was changing. They couldn't protect him much longer. Outside the department, another protest formed. This time, it wasn't just students and activists. Lawyers, doctors, teachers, people from all walks of life stood side by side. An old woman held a sign that said, "If Maria falls, we all fall." Meanwhile, Samira continued digging. She wanted more than just video proof. She wanted Rick's full record. She requested files from the department under public law. What she found next was worse than anyone expected. 3 complaints. 3 different women. 3 past cases. All involving Officer Rick. One woman said he yelled at her for walking too slowly. Another said he searched her car without reason. A third had claimed he shoved her too, but her case had been dropped due to lack of evidence. Now, Samira had the proof. She published an article titled, "How Many Women Did Officer Rick Push Before Maria?" This article made lawmakers speak. City officials held press conferences. One councilwoman said, "If this is how Officer Rick treats the public, how many others are still silent?" Pressure grew. The department had no choice. Officer Rick was finally suspended without pay. But to the people, it was still not enough. Maria's lawyer, Mr. Hanif, stepped up. "This is progress," he said. "But we want charges. We want a court date, and we want him behind bars." That same night, someone slipped an envelope under Samira's door. Inside were copies of more documents, training evaluations, notes from supervisors. One line stood out. Officer Rick shows signs of anger control issues, recommend close monitoring. They had known, and still let him patrol the streets. Maria, now stronger, gave her first statement from her hospital bed. Her voice was soft but firm. "I'm not just fighting for me. I'm fighting for every woman who is pushed, hurt, or silenced. My child deserves to be born in a world where police protect, not attacked." And still, the baby inside her kept fighting, the heartbeat, now stronger, steadier. The doctor smiled one morning and said, "He's a fighter, just like you." Maria closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered, "I won't stop. Not until justice is done." The camera had caught the truth, but the war was just beginning. The hospital room was quiet, but Maria's heart was loud. Every beat was a reminder that life was still inside her, fighting. She stared at the ceiling, the soft hum of machines surrounding her. tubes in her arms, wires on her belly. Monitors, blinking quietly in the dark. She could feel the baby move sometimes. Light kicks, tiny turns, but the doctors said it wasn't enough. They were watching everything, every moment. She was 7 months pregnant, and now every hour mattered. One mistake, one wrong move, and she could lose everything. David sat beside her, face pale, hands locked tightly together. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were red. He hadn't cried in front of Maria, but he cried in the hallway when she slept. Seeing her like this broke something in him. This was the woman who used to dance while washing dishes, who sang to their baby before it even had ears to hear. And now she lay in a bed, unable to walk, her body covered in bruises, because a man in uniform decided to treat her like an enemy. Every few hours, nurses walked in quietly, checking machines, adjusting her position, whispering updates. The baby's heartbeat is steady, but not perfect, one nurse said. We need to keep monitoring. Any stress can change things fast. Maria nodded weakly, trying to be brave, but inside, she was scared. The nights were the worst. She would wake up and panic, thinking she was falling again. She would see Officer Rick's face in her dreams, cold eyes, angry voice, his hands pushing her down. Sometimes she screamed. Nurses would rush in. David would hold her. It's okay, he'd whisper. He's not here. You're safe. But was she? Outside the hospital? Maria's name was now known everywhere. She had become a face of injustice. Some people loved her, others hated her. Strangers sent flowers, cards, and prayers. But one night someone left a message in red paint on the hospital wall. She's lying. Cops protect us. Security cameras caught nothing. The hospital increased protection. Police guards were placed near her door. Ironically, Maria was now being protected by the same kind of men who had once hurt her. She didn't speak to them. She COULDN, single quotes T.1, afternoon. The doctor entered the room with serious eyes. We need to talk, he said. David stood up quickly. Is it the baby? The doctor nodded. Yes, we've been watching closely. The baby is under stress. His heartbeat drops sometimes. If this continues, we may need to deliver early. It's risky, but waiting too long is worse. Maria looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Will he survive? The doctor didn't promise. We'll do everything we can, but he's small. Very small. Maria closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Please, she said, just save him. Outside the hospital, the legal war was growing. Mr. Hanif, Maria's lawyer, held another press conference. This is not just about one officer. This is about a system that let him keep working, that ignored complaints, that buried reports. And now, an innocent woman and her unborn child are paying the price. Reporters asked questions. Will you sue the department? Yes, Mr. Hanif said. And we're going to court fast. Meanwhile, Officer Rick had disappeared from public view. He hadn't made a single statement. His lawyer refused all interviews. But rumors spread. Some said Rick had been seen leaving town. Others claimed he was being protected by people inside the department. No one knew for sure, but everyone was watching. Back at the hospital, something changed. Late one night, Maria felt a sharp pain. It started in her lower back and spread to her stomach. She gasped. The monitor beeped. Nurses rushed in. She's contracting, one shouted. Get the doctor now. Maria gripped the bed rails tightly. David was shouting. What's happening? Early labor. A nurse replied quickly. It's happening too soon. We need to move her. Within minutes, she was being wheeled down the hall. Bright lights, cold air, fast footsteps. The doctor appeared, gloves on, eyes focused. We're going in now. We have to get the baby out. Maria's world went silent. Darkness. Hours later, David stood outside the operating room, hands shaking, heart breaking. Finally, a nurse came out. She looked tired but calm. The baby is here, she said. He's small, very small, but he's alive. David collapsed into a chair, crying for the first time in days. Can I see him? He asked Sue. She said. He's in the NICU. He needs help breathing, but he's a fighter, like his mom. When Maria woke up, she was weak. Her first words were, Is he okay? David nodded, tears falling. He's tiny, but he's here. He made it. Maria cried quietly. Thank God. The hospital released a photo later that day. Tiny fingers wrapped around a nurse's glove, eyes closed, wires everywhere. The caption read, Baby Amir, born early, born strong. The photo went viral. People who had once only seen Maria as the pregnant woman who got pushed now saw her as a mother, a warrior, and her soon a symbol of survival. But the fight wasn't over. Mr. Hanif now pushed harder. They almost killed this baby. We will not let them walk away. Samira, the journalist, published a new article, Born into Injustice, the baby who survived police brutality. More people marched, more people shouted. Even city leaders were now under pressure. The mayor called for an emergency council. A senator tweeted, This baby's cry should wake us all. Inside the NICU, Maria stared at her son through the glass. She couldn't hold him yet, but she whispered, I'll protect you, no matter what. And somewhere across the city, Officer Rick watched the news, face pale, fists tight. He knew. Now he couldn't hide forever. The child he tried to silence. had been born, and the world was listening. The city had changed. The streets still looked the same: busy roads, old buildings, people rushing from one place to another, but something in the air felt different now. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was something deeper. A quiet storm of truth that had been hiding for years was finally waking up. And at the center of it all stood Maria, her newborn son, Amir, and the cop who had almost destroyed both. Inside the hospital, Maria sat in a wheelchair beside the glass window of the NICU. Her body was still weak, but her eyes were sharp. She watched Amir every second. He was the size of a small doll, wrapped in tubes and wires, his chest rising and falling slowly with each breath. Nurses called him the little lion. Doctors said he was a miracle. But Maria didn't see him as a miracle. She saw him as her reason to keep fighting. Every day she whispered to him, "You were never supposed to enter this world like this. But now that you're here, I'll make sure you grow up in a better one." While she waited and healed, the outside world was shaking. Mr. Haniff was building a case not just against Officer Rick but against the entire police department, and he had helped. Samira, the young journalist, had uncovered more than just Rick's bad behavior. She had found files, interviews, and ignored complaints that pointed to something much darker. One night, Samira sat in her apartment, surrounded by papers. She had printed every complaint against Rick from the past 10 years. There were 5 total, 3 of them involved women of color. One was from a teenage boy who said Rick shoved him against a wall for talking back. And the last one was from a fellow officer, a man who had quietly written a warning note to his supervisor 2 years ago. The note said, "Rick is dangerous. He targets certain people. One day he's going to hurt someone badly." Samira couldn't believe it. This wasn't just about one bad cop. This was about a department that knew and looked away, again and again. She published her next article. They knew how the police department protected Officer Rick. It went viral within minutes. The article exposed everything. Internal emails, ignored complaints, a culture of silence. Her final sentence hit the hardest. Maria's fall wasn't an accident. It was the result of years of silence, power, and racism hiding behind a badge. By morning, the police chief was forced to speak. At a press conference, Chief Wallace stood stiffly behind a podium. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted. His face was pale. "We are reviewing past complaints against Officer Rick," he said. "We take all allegations seriously." A reporter shouted, "Why didn't you act before?" Wallace hesitated. "Mistakes were made," he said. "We're working to correct them." But it was too late. The world had seen the truth. And Maria? She was now the name on every banner, every protest sign, every courtroom file. Inside the hospital, David read the article aloud to Maria. Her hands trembled. "They knew," she whispered. "They let him near people after everything." David nodded, his jaw tight. "We're going to destroy them in court." That same day, something unexpected happened. A man named Officer Daniels retired now, but once Rick's partner asked to speak to Mr. Haniff, he wanted to testify. "I can't stay silent anymore," he said. "I saw what Rick did. I heard how he talked. I reported him once, but nothing changed." Mr. Haniff asked, "Why are you speaking now?" Daniels looked down. "Because Maria's son didn't ask to be born into this. And maybe if someone had spoken up earlier, he wouldn't be fighting for his life." When Daniels' name became public, more police officers began talking quietly at first. Whispered messages, anonymous emails. Some said Rick had power because he had friends in high places. Others said he was feared. One even said he made people think he was untouchable. But now, he wasn't. Samira received a message from someone inside the department. A single line. "Check the training files. You'll see how deep this goes." She did what she found was shocking. During his first year, Rick had failed a mental health evaluation. The department noted aggressive tendencies, authority issues, and racial bias concerns. Instead of removing him, they put him in a supervised training program for 6 months and then sent him back to patrol. No follow-up. No review. Samira published the story under the headline, "Broken from the Start: How the System Built Officer Rick." Public anger exploded. The city council was forced to call an emergency hearing. Citizens demanded action. "Fire the chief." One woman shouted, "Investigate the whole department." Another yelled. Maria watched it all from her hospital bed. The nurse turned the TV on low. Every time her name was mentioned, she felt a strange mix of pain and pride. She never wanted to be famous. She never wanted to be a symbol. But if her voice could change something, she would use it. That evening, Amir finally opened his eyes. Maria leaned over the glass and smiled. "There you are," she whispered. "You've been so brave." David stood beside her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "He's just like his mom." Amir's tiny fingers moved slowly. The doctor said he was getting stronger. He would need more time, more care. But he was breathing. He was living, and so was the fight for justice. Maria turned to David and said quietly, "We're going to walk into that courtroom one day, and I want them to see us. I want them to see the woman they tried to silence, and I want them to see the boy who survived." David nodded. "They'll see us, and they'll never forget us." In the heart of the city, truth was no longer hiding. It was speaking loudly. and the people were finally listening. The courthouse was packed, not just with lawyers and reporters but with people, mothers holding signs, students with notebooks, families sitting shoulder to shoulder, waiting, watching. It was the day everyone had been talking about. The day Maria would face the man who had tried to break her. At the day truth would step into a courtroom and speak. Maria entered slowly, dressed in a simple navy blue dress. Her steps were careful, her body still healing, but her eyes were calm and full of strength. In her arms, she carried something even more powerful than her words, her baby, tiny Amir, wrapped in soft blankets, resting quietly against her chest. He was stronger now, healthier, breathing on his own. The doctors had warned her not to bring him. Too much risk, they said. But Maria had replied with a firm voice, "He has every right to be here. He's part of this story too." The room went silent as she walked in. Even the judge paused for a moment, eyes following her. David walked beside her, carrying her bag and holding her hand gently when she paused to rest. Behind them, Mr. Henn walked tall, folders under his arm, his face focused like a man ready for battle. On the other side of the room sat Officer Rick, no badge, no uniform, just a black suit and a stiff tie. His face was expressionless, but his fingers tapped the table nervously. This was not the strong shouting man from the video. This was someone smaller now, cornered, afraid. The judge cleared his throat. "This is a civil trial for excessive use of force by Officer Richard Hayes against Maria Khan, a pregnant woman. Both sides will present evidence. Let the truth be heard." Mr. Hanif stood first. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. His words were simple but sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here because a woman who did nothing wrong was attacked, pushed to the ground. Her child nearly died, and it was all caught on camera. This is not just about one bad moment. It's about a pattern. A man who was protected when he should have been punished. A department that turned its back. When it should have spoken up." He turned toward Maria. "This woman trusted the law, and the law betrayed her." Then it was the defense's turn. Rick's lawyer, tall and cold, walked to the center. "My client was doing his duty," he said. "He believed something was suspicious. He followed procedure. What happened was tragic, yes, but not criminal." The courtroom murmured, but everything changed when the video played. First, the original video from the parking lot, the one that had started it all. The courtroom watched the moment Maria was pushed. The scream, the fall. Then the second angle clearer, sharper, showing Rick's hand, his force. The exact motion, silence, even the jury looked shaken. Then came the testimonies. Doctors explained the baby's injuries. Nurses described Maria's fear. Samira, the reporter, was called to speak. She told the court what she had found: 5 complaints, hidden files, ignored warnings. Finally, it was Maria's turn. She stood slowly, placing Amir into David's arms before walking to the stand. The courtroom watched her closely. Some people wiped their eyes before she even spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. "I'm not here to be a hero," she said. "I didn't ask for this. I was just going to buy food. I parked, I stepped out, and then everything changed." She paused, swallowing hard. He didn't see a mother. He didn't see a human. He saw someone who didn't look like him, and he decided I didn't belong. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I begged him. I told him I was pregnant. He didn't care. He pushed me. I felt my body hit the ground. I felt pain I can't explain. And then, I thought I lost my baby. The jury watched in silence. Maria looked over at Rick. "You never even said sorry. You left me there, bleeding, scared. You didn't see the baby kicking inside me. You only saw someone to control." She turned back to the judge. "I carried that child for 7 months. And in 1 second, he almost lost everything. But now he's here. He survived. And so did I. But I will never forget what you did to me." She stepped down, her legs shaking. David held her as the courtroom stood up in a wave of emotion. Some people clapped. The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court." Then came the surprise witness, Officer Daniels. He walked in with his badge in his hand but not wearing it. He sat down, voice heavy. "I trained with Rick. I saw things I didn't like. I filed a report. Nothing happened. That woman could have died. The baby could have died. And I can't stay quiet anymore." He looked directly at Rick. "You were wrong, and you know it." The courtroom erupted again. By the end of the day, it wasn't just about one incident anymore. The court had heard the full story, not just from Maria, but from the system that had tried to bury her truth. As everyone stood to leave, the judge said one final thing. "This court will review all evidence. A verdict will be given soon. But let me say this. What happened in that parking lot should never happen again. Anywhere." Maria sat down, exhausted but proud. Amir stirred in David's arms, eyes blinking open. "He did so well today," she whispered, kissing his forehead. David smiled. "So did you." Outside the courthouse, thousands waited. When Maria stepped out, the crowd cheered. Cameras flashed. People chanted her name, but she didn't wave or smile. She simply held her baby high, as if to say, "We are still here. We are still standing." And the fight was far from over. The courtroom had fallen silent again. The videos were played. The stories were told. Maria had spoken. The world had listened. But the final truth, a deep-buried truth, had not yet come out. People wanted justice, yes, but they also wanted understanding. How could something like this happen in a place meant to protect people? Why was Officer Rick never stopped before? That answer came from a man no one expected. Officer Michael Daniels. He had served for over 20 years. A tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. A man who had trained dozens of young officers, including Rick. And now, after months of watching the news, reading the articles, and seeing the pain in Maria's eyes, he decided to speak. Not behind closed doors, not in a hidden room, but in open court. He had been called as a witness by Mr. Hanif, Maria's lawyer. Everyone had expected more documents, more medical reports, maybe a statement from another protest leader. But when Daniels walked through the courtroom door, even Rick's lawyer looked confused. Daniels sat down in the witness chair and took a deep breath. He looked around the courtroom at the judge, at Maria, at Rick Hand, then began. I worked with Rick for 5 years. I trained him. I rode in the car with him during his early days, and I saw things that scared me. The courtroom shifted. People leaned in. Maria sat still, her hands gripping her dress. From the beginning, Daniels said, Rick had issues with control. He liked being in charge. Too much, and when someone didn't look like him, when someone had darker skin or spoke with an accent, his tone changed. He was colder, quicker to get angry. I reported this twice, but nothing happened. Mr. Hanif asked, what did you report? Exactly, Daniels answered without hesitation. I said he was showing signs of racial bias. I said he used unnecessary force on a young black boy during a stop. I said he shouted at a Latina woman in front of her children. My supervisors told me, we'll handle it, but nothing changed. The jury looked shocked. The judge leaned forward slightly. Daniels continued. The system protects its own. That's the truth. It rewards silence. If you speak up, you become a problem. If you ignore the bad, you get promoted. He looked straight at the judge. I know this isn't easy to hear, but this department failed Maria, not just Rick, the department. There was a pause. The air felt heavy. Then Daniels said something no one expected. I quit early because of Rick. I didn't feel safe standing beside a man like that with a gun and a badge. And the day I saw that video, the day he pushed that pregnant woman, I knew I couldn't stay quiet any longer. Maria looked at him with wide eyes. She didn't expect help to come from inside the very walls that once protected her attacker. For the first time, she saw someone wearing the same badge but speaking a different truth. Rick didn't look at Daniels. He stared at the floor, his hands clenched into fists. For the first time during the whole trial, he seemed small. The courtroom erupted. People whispered. Reporters scribbled faster. The judge had to call for order again and again. That evening, the news headlines were explosive. Veteran officer testifies, we let Rick hurt people. Police insider speaks out. Breaks blue wall of silence. Maria's fight sparks movement inside the force. Even other officers began speaking anonymously in interviews. One said, everyone knew Rick was a problem. Another said, we were told not to question him. A third said, if Officer Daniels had spoken sooner, maybe Maria wouldn't have suffered. Maria's lawyer, Mr. Hanif, stood outside the courthouse the next morning and told the crowd, this is not just about punishment, this is about prevention. The department must change. The silence must stop. We must protect women like Maria, before they're hurt, not after. That same week, 3 more complaints from other women were filed against Rick, older cases, hidden away, now uncovered. The department's lawyers tried to deny them, but the damage was done. Maria remained calm through it all. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile in front of cameras. She stayed in her small apartment, rocking Amir to sleep, feeding him slowly, whispering lullabies. She told David, let them make noise. I'll save my voice for the final verdict. But, deep inside, she knew. The moment Officer Daniels broke the silence, the wall began to crack, and once one voice speaks, others begin to follow. It had been 3 long months. 3 months since Maria was pushed in that parking lot. 3 months of protests, courtrooms, sleepless nights, and whispered prayers. 3 months of watching her newborn son Amir fight for every breath in a cold hospital room. And now, it came down to one moment. The verdict? The courtroom was packed once again. People stood outside with signs. Some held candles. Some had baby toys tied to their backpacks. Some carried pictures of Maria and Amir. Reporters lined the sidewalks. Cameras pointed at the doors. Inside, Maria sat silently in the front row, Amir resting peacefully against her chest. He was bigger now, stronger. The tubes were gone, his breathing steady. A little fighter in a blue blanket. David sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Mr. Hanif stood ahead of them, calm and confident. He had given everything to this case, but now it was out of his hands. Across the courtroom, Rick sat stiffly at the defendant's table, jaw clenched, eyes cold. He looked at no one, not even the jury. The judge entered, the room rose. The air felt heavy. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. The head juror stood. We have, Your Honor. Everyone held their breath. In the case of Maria, Khan versus Officer Richard Hayes. We find the defendant liable for use of excessive force, racial discrimination, and emotional trauma. Gasps filled the courtroom. Some people cried, some clapped. The judge quickly called for silence. Maria didn't move. She just closed her eyes and let the tears fall. David leaned in and kissed her forehead. Amir stirred gently in her arms, as if sensing the peace in the air. It was over. But it wasn't just about this one trial. The judge continued. Officer Hayes is ordered to pay full damages to the victim. Furthermore, this court recommends a federal investigation into the department's conduct, hiring practices, and internal complaint handling. More cheers outside. Reporters ran to send updates. News anchors broke into live coverage. The headlines flooded the internet. Maria wins. Justice for the pregnant woman pushed by police. Baby Amir's mother brings down the wall of silence. But inside the courtroom, Maria stood slowly. She didn't shout. She didn't wave. She simply walked forward, stood in front of the people, and held her baby high one last time. Not as a victim, not as a symbol, but as a survivor, a mother, and a voice that could no longer be ignored. Outside, the protests had turned into celebrations. Strangers hugged. People chanted, "We see you, Maria." Children handed flowers to police officers. A few officers even took a knee in solidarity. Later that day, the police chief officially resigned. A full investigation into Officer Rick's past cases was announced. The department promised to reform its policies. For once, it wasn't just words. Real change had begun. Samira, the journalist who had followed Maria's story from day one, published her final article that night, From Silence to Strength. How One Woman Changed a System. It ended with this line. Maria didn't ask to be a fighter. But when the world pushed her down, she stood up and carried her son and a nation forward. That evening, back at home, Maria sat in a rocking chair beside the window. Amir slept quietly in her arms. David brought her tea, and for the first time in a long time, the house was quiet. Maria looked down at her baby and whispered, "You were born in chaos, but you will grow up in peace. Because I'll never let the world forget what we lived through." And the wind outside carried her words into the night.